Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Digital Amicus. I am Ahsan Qazi, and today we are joined by Mr. Syed Ahmad Hassan Shah to have a very interesting discussion on the contemporary legal practice in Pakistan. Mr. Shah is an advocate of the Supreme Court of Pakistan and the founding partner of Kaunain Nafees Legal Practitioners and Advisors Islamabad. He boasts a diverse practice in law, including but not limited to the areas of litigation, international arbitration, corporate, as well as government advisory work. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Ahsan. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you.
Always a pleasure.
Digital Amicus is an amazing project, and I wish you all power.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. All right, sir. International arbitration, litigation, corporate, and government advisory work. Those are some of the areas on which you have worked extensively. So my first question relates to the fact that this is indeed a very diverse range of practice. And what was your motivation to pursue such diversification, number one? And two, in the context of Pakistan, why is it increasingly important, specifically in the 21st century, that one should have such a diverse practice range?
Starting from the very early days, when I to emulate the likes of Perry Mason and other who you know are all criminal attorneys. So the proverbial lawyer, if there is any in literature or drama, it's the astute criminal attorney. As luck would have it, my initial interaction in that discipline, and I gravitated towards the civil commercial side. And I realized that doing civil commercial work brought in me a greater desire to innovate, a greater opportunity to interact with a set of people, including clientele. So, unlike in other developed countries where young lawyers do have the option of picking through their law school and then following that for the rest of their lives, Pakistan does not have that luxury. Here, we have limited to training opportunities, which means law firms and seniors are not that many in number. Civil side, in the early 90s, we saw in Pakistan a liberalization of the economy, as they say. The state started to open up various sectors of state economy to foreign investment, to local investment. And that is when we saw a bit of a surge in terms of new legal work. So the conventional civil lawyer, the conventional criminal lawyer, there were other tax lawyers at the time, there were certain service labor lawyers at the time. But with this new foreign investment, this new business opportunity in Pakistan, came a new range of work. To give you an example, the construction industry opened up, the telecom sector and gas sector opened up, and so on and so forth. And now, over these years, you see that so many of these regulatory bodies have come up, which are actually administering certain areas or fields, which we now call specialized. When we were younger, we would hear that, you have telecom specialists in the UK or in the US or elsewhere, but there were none in Pakistan because everyone was doing everything. So it was more to do with what the environment in Pakistan was at the time when I was driving through my career as a lawyer. Now, there is a personal element to it as well. I am not to do one thing all the time. I need to do different things at different times. So I have done work in, let's say, the power sector or in the telecom sector, but then I feel that it becomes a little too mundane. The innovation, the excitement, learning new things, that goes away, because if day in day out you're working on the implementation agreement or the power purchase agreement, well, you do 20, 30 of those, and then it kind of becomes very mundane for you. So for me, law has been all about being excited about what I do. So that is why I have been hopping around as well. But when, as a law firm, we talk about being a service provider, it is also about being a full service law firm. So when we set out to provide service to clients, the idea was that we should set up a practice which should be, as they call, a full service law firm, so that someone comes to you, you should be able to help and offer whatever services they may need. This may involve a personal case. One of the CEOs can have a divorce, unfortunately, and you want to be ready and prepared to do his divorce litigation, and likewise the commercial, and so on and so forth. So there is always a choice, and I believe every lawyer works hard in his initial years or her initial years, so that one day he or she will have a choice to pick and choose which are the cases that they want to do and which they don't want to do, and maybe other colleagues can do it. So I have been very fortunate that I got good teachers to begin with. I got a good exposure to begin with, which was a mix of both litigation and advisory. And over the years, I developed this sense that for me, in Pakistan, and this is what I advocate, that we need complete lawyers. We don't need lawyers who are um, uh, unfit in certain environments. It is a possibility. I'm not undermining anybody. These are choices. But to me, a complete lawyer is a lawyer who is able to function, if he chooses to, within the setup of a court and kacheri, and also outside of the court and kacheri in the so-called corporate world. So I have tried to develop skills that are commensurate with the requirements of these two areas, broader areas or divisions of practice. And as now, there are specialized areas of practice, and it is for people to choose if they want to follow a career in law in a particular discipline, be it arbitration, and or be it litigation, be it constitutional jurisdiction, it be public interest, whatever. These are these choices. But I would still, my take is that I would like my younger colleagues to have as varied and as wide an experience in their formative years. And for me, the formative years are at least the first 10 years, not the first 2-3 years. And then be ready to embrace whatever they wish. So I hope that responds to your question.
It certainly does. Very insightful, sir. So you mentioned, sir, that the emerging economic opportunity in Pakistan warrants such diversification in the legal practice these days. But when we look at it in the context of the legal environment of Pakistan, do you see any sort of advantages from this proliferation of new and specialized legal regimes that are cropping up almost every 5 years? Two big examples come to mind: the Intellectual Property Organization of Pakistan and the Competition Commission of Pakistan as well. These are just two big examples of specialized regimes and their own regulatory bodies forming. So what sort of impact does that have in the legal sphere in Pakistan, in your opinion?
As in, you've read it in the books, you've heard it probably from your seniors, that law is a dynamic process. Societies evolve, laws evolve. As businesses have evolved, new areas of regulation or have been required. I remember in the mid 90s, when I was a student in London, competition law was a half subject. That meant you had half credit for it. So in these past 20-25 years, that has now become a major area of practice the world over. Likewise, go back a few years, IP, intellectual property, was not considered to be that serious a discipline. But now it is. Some of the highest paid lawyers in the US are patent attorneys. So these are things that happen, evolve. We are in a dynamic setting. It is absolutely fabulous to my mind that there is this proliferation, as you say. Now, one is the academic challenge or the social aspect of it. But then there is another practical aspect that I'd like to highlight. And I think Islamabad in particular is a good case in point. Islamabad is a new market, so to say, for lawyers. Because historically, you would know that we didn't even have a high court here. So we had to go down to Pindi, to the Lahore High Court Pindi bench, although we've had the Supreme Court here forever. But now we are growing as a legal market, so to say. So what has happened is that there are a number of lawyers in Islamabad is increasing exponentially. Only 5 years ago, there were about 3,000 lawyers in Islamabad. Now they are in excess of 6,000. What are these 6,000 lawyers going to do? In the next 5 years, there'll be another 7,000. So these new areas of practice, this is where they'll find their way. As a lawyer, there are certain core skills that you need to know. That is why you are taught certain basic subjects. As a student, you go through the criminal and civil procedures and you go through other major laws. But then when you come into the practical life, you see that the whole world is different there. So basically what they seek to do is they give you the basic minimum overview or an intro so that you can paddle through the vast river that is lying before you as you enter the professional life. And these are the new disciplines that people keep an eye on or should keep an eye on, because this is where they will get clientele. Law is a profession. Every professional wishes that he provides services to the highest bidder, except when you want to do pro bono work, right? So you have to see where the economics of the day are also going, and particularly when you chose to become a commercial or a corporate lawyer. I have never. So when you do work on the commercial side, you must remain abreast with what is coming new. New businesses emerge. How many of us could have even imagined the Ubers of today, the Kareems of today, or other Amazons of today, Facebooks of today? When I was as young as you are today, I could not have dreamt of all these. They have brought with themselves a new range of regulation. So these are the areas I think they're fabulous. They are great opportunities. Technology has brought in with it other opportunities that we all need to be equipped with. And this is where we will channelize the young lawyers to go and find their earning or a professional nirvana that they seek. And I believe that now, since the time I actually was a lawyer, uh, I believe now there are young men and women who are pursuing dedicated areas of practice. You will find young lawyers who are working in law firms that only do construction law. You will find young people who are only doing tax, only doing power work. So these specializations will come, but the general expertise, the diversification in terms of the skill set, I believe that will always remain.
All right. Practically, that sounds very good. But if you look at it from an academic perspective, do you feel that such proliferation of specialized courts and tribunals that come with these specialized laws, do you think that sort of creates a fragmentation of jurisprudence of the country? And if so, how can we sort of mitigate this fragmentation and maintain some sort of consistency with respect to our jurisprudence?
I do not believe that this creates, I don't think that this creates an undesirable allocation of regulation. Over-regulation, they say at times, is bad. But speaking as a lawyer, when we look at models elsewhere, we see that regulation on sector-specific lines has been a model in many countries. It's not there in every country, but it has been in many countries. In some countries, they have been sort of unwinding this as well, going back to the general power within the government. Now, as far as jurisprudence is concerned, for countries like ours that are driven by a constitutional norm and principles that the superior courts lay down while interpreting that constitutional norm or ethos, I think we have a point, a center point from where we can say that the jurisprudential aspects may appear to be hinged. So I don't think that this causes, academically speaking, any confusion. Yes, because of the non-familiarity of several of the people who are entrusted the role to regulate these sectors, because of their unfamiliarity with the jurisprudence that has been laid down by the courts, and perhaps because of their unfamiliarity with the legal theory or the constitutional theories that we espouse as a country, yes, we see a mismatch of regulation and practice. Now, if you meant that that is what causes the fragmentation, fine, I will not dispute that. But to me, that is not an academic. That has occurred because these bodies are also new. They're also discovering their way forward. But all of them try to follow the principles that we believe are today the principles of due process in Pakistan. So each of these bodies have been coming in, toeing in line, so to say, with time, and they will do so. Pakistan is a highly litigious society, yes. So we have wiser litigants, we have wiser counsel now. So let's hope. I'm a great optimist. While I can see and even appreciate when someone points out the anomalies or the confusions that we cause while at it, but I'm a great optimist and I believe that we can work our way through for a common collective good.
My next question, sir, relates to sort of, I think the proper word would be, let's say, for example, hostility, you can say, towards the creation of these specialized regulatory bodies and the adjudication mechanisms that follow from them. So there are numerous examples in the recent years as well, that whenever a new regulatory body is created and a dispute mechanism, a specialized dispute mechanism under that regulatory body is created, immediately the vires, the constitutional vires of such bodies challenged before the superior court. So why is that? Why are we seeing this sort of trend instead of welcoming specialization and diversification? We are sort of wanting that everything, whatever the law is, whatever the regime is, even if it's special, even if it's general, it must be decided by the civil court, as they say. And the special adjudicatory body, whatever is created, is ultra vires to the constitution. So why is there this sort of perception with respect to acceptance of this diversification?
Well, there are two ways that I look at this question. One is on a societal level, and the other on a legal level. Have you ever wondered who are the people on whose behalf these challenges are presented to courts? It's always the big fish. You will not find an average litigant coming up with these kind of challenges. These challenges are generally, as we have seen it, are on behalf of groups, most likely business interests, who see that this intervention into their work or business is uncalled for. On a legal plane, yes. We have to decide whether or not this country and the governance structure in this country is to be one where the government sort of decentralizes and allows autonomous, independent bodies to discharge some of the functions of the state. Now, if we were to go by historical context or precedent, so to say, we see that Pakistan is a country where it has embraced this decentralization of functions of the state. What I initially mentioned to you in my opening statement was, and I said in the early 90s, when there was a decentralization of the government, sectors of state economy were opening up. So one way of opening up these sectors of state economy is through regulation, through these independent autonomous bodies. Now, yes, there may be yet another third element to it, that are these bodies actually independent and autonomous? I was a young lawyer in the early 90s, and one of the first due diligences on a privatization that I worked on was in respect of a company which is still under privatization, and this is my 27th year in practice. So yes, there are issues with such kind of deregulations or entrustment of functions to bodies, allegedly autonomous bodies. But I personally don't see an issue with the concept. The problem that arises is that our constitution allocates responsibility in terms of subject matter within the, within the federation and the provinces and so on and so forth. Now, it is because of that that there is this room of argument that a particular agency or the body is now being asked to set upon a task or do something that constitutionally is not within its power. Now, these are the debates that will forever be. If you look at the UK or the US models, among other countries, even you go to Hong Kong for that matter, or sorry, go to Singapore, you will see that wherever they have opted for such regulatory bodies or options and models, people have always challenged them on these constitutional grounds, even in Australia, even in Canada. So these will happen because people will find ways to contest things that they perceive to be obstructive to whatever they are doing and whatever they believe to be doing right. And that is why the courts step in.
Right. Sir, in your opinion, what role can the bar do, the bar councils and the bar associations do to create this sort of welcoming environment? Because when you started, you talked about how young graduates and young lawyers have very few avenues to explore such diverse areas of law. So in that particular context, how can the bar associations and the bar councils sort of help foster such environment where one can pursue such diversification?
The bar councils actually do not represent what we stand for. The bar councils are not discharging the functions that they ought to. Now, and I speak only now with reference to my bar council, which is the Islamabad Bar Council. Islamabad Bar Council is a new bar council. We are up for our elections for the second time. There's been, like I said, a proliferation of lawyers in Islamabad. And we feel that this large number of lawyers is kind of getting no direction. There is work in Islamabad that needs to be done. There are great opportunities in Islamabad for lawyers, but there are a few impediments that we believe that the Bar Council should be able to remove for us. Now, it is very unfortunate that Islamabad, despite being the capital city, does not have a decent judicial complex. I'm not sure if you visited our kacheri here in Islamabad, but based on my experience, excuse me, my experience in sort of going to kacheris in a large number of cities across Pakistan, it's sad to say that ours probably is the least well provided for. We need a customized, proper, judicial complex for the lower courts. We have great and magnificent buildings in Islamabad for every organ of the state at the top. But for the judiciary, the core, the beginning, every suit and dispute, like you said earlier, starts at the kacheri, and the conditions have been going down the spiral, as so to say. So the bar councils need to be active on more than 2-3 fronts. First, they need to shape themselves, reorganize themselves to be independent autonomous bodies. Yes, but they need to work for the betterment of the lawyers. You cannot provide lawyers a desirable space unless you improve the legal environment of the courts, the system. So we need to focus on that. The Bar Council should be more vocal and coordinating with the government to provide us a better complex judicial complex for us to function. Then there is a lot of wanting. There's the sense that training opportunities are not adequate or enough for the lawyers. The Bar Council needs to keep its hand on the pulse of time. We spoke today about the various new fields of law, the emerging areas of practice. These are all areas that the Bar Council should keep engaged with in such a way that it should have its community, the lawyers, to have some kind of exchange or access information or knowledge share program with these. We are sitting in Islamabad, we are sitting in the center, we have access to the government, we have access to the highest offices, to all these regulatory bodies, but our Bar Council is totally disconnected. A case in point is, unfortunately, that you know that recently there have been amendments in the Civil Procedure Code. After 1 year, we learned that our Bar Council did not even comment, or if it ever received a copy of it, they never bothered to consider what the impact of those amendments would be on how work is being done by lawyers in Islamabad. So these days there's a big crisis going on. The lawyers keep on, the bar associations keep on calling for strikes. So this connects me to another issue of the strikes. So the councils need to be more proactive. They need to be in the prognosis stage, then diagnosis, and then corrective behavior. Our bar councils need to have greater interface with the feeder institutions, that are the educational institutions that are churning these lawyers every year. You will be surprised to note that an estimate is that there are about 1,000 lawyers, LLB graduates every year only in Islamabad. Now that is by any stretch a serious number. Should the Bar Council not be aware of this number? Should they not be concerned where they are going, where they will go, what they will do? They are there to regulate the profession. So I assume that they ought to know. But do they know? They don't. Should they? Yes, they should. So these are the areas where the Bar Council needs to pull up its socks, have an interface with the government agencies, keep an eye on what's happening, introduce these new areas to the young people, particularly young people, and see that they can carve out their careers in law to available opportunities and infrastructure, like I said. And I want to share with you one other statistic. Islamabad is also perhaps unique in this, that we have about 6,000 plus lawyers in Islamabad today. Over 1,000 of them are women. Out of the 4,500 approximate voters in Islamabad today, nearly 800 or 800 plus are women. We do not see women representation in any of these councils. We have alienated a large number of our membership. I don't know why. How long are we going to do that? So these are the areas that I believe that the Bar Council needs to look at. And there's so much more to do. And some of them are not rocket science. They are simple, easy things to do. Only if people will sit together, put up their mind to get something going, they'll find a way forward. All resolution begins with recognition. First, you recognize an issue and then you resolve it. This is what the Bar Council should do. That is why someone like me, who was happily tucked away doing the kind of practice that I was, having my interface with the courts as and when needed. But now I realize that no, I can't sit back. I cannot stay home and criticize. I need to step forward. I need to play my part. And I need to encourage everyone, young and old, my peers, everybody to play their part. We can't be, we're not silent spectators. We cannot just be forward. We need to play our part. And we need to do things differently. We need to do things better. We need to do things for collective benefit. And this is what the bar councils are about, collective benefit.
Quite an interesting discussion with you, sir. And we'll end on that optimistic note that hopefully the issues that you have mentioned will be resolved as well. We had a really interesting discussion. Thank you so much for your input. I'm sure our viewers are going to learn
Welcome.
a lot about the issues that we discussed.
Ahsan, can I
Yes,
say
yes,
one thing for my colleagues in Islamabad?
yes, yes, please, please.
On 28th November 2020, we have election day. I request everybody to come out and vote. Make your choice and do the right thing for the right reasons. Find out who is who, make your pick, and then get people there who you believe will do the right thing for the right reasons, and do not stop there. This engagement must proceed, carry on, and we should remain in contact with those who we elect to these offices, so that there is answerability. So if you allow, I will share with you my election symbol, election slogan, which is Election 2020 for candidate number 20. All good wishes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Allah Hafiz.